As I turned the corner that afternoon, I stumbled upon a scene I wasn't meant to see, one of our company's most diligent employees in the middle of a breakup. I froze, staying just out of sight, and listened as the conversation unfolded. The man confronting him was visibly distressed, his voice raised in desperation. "Pitt Horton, why are you breaking up with me? Can we not end it like this? If there's something you're unhappy with, I'll change. Just tell me, I'll fix it, alright? Please, don't leave me." Pitt Horton's voice, when he finally responded, was a flat, weary echo of his usual polite tone. "We've already broken up," he said, calm but exhausted. "Please stop bothering me." Pitt Horton, of all people. He looked like the ideal son parents praised at family dinners, the kind of student teachers adored for his quiet compliance, the model employee supervisors could rely on. He was so neat, so put together, always with his glasses perched just right and his shirt buttoned up to the collar. "You like men? Well then, maybe I stood a chance too." Later that same day, I found a reason to start a conversation with him, something about checking project progress. From there, I let the topic drift. From deadlines to hobbies, from coffee preferences to weekend plans, I circled and steered and prodded, carefully fishing for any detail about what he liked. Then Pitt adjusted his glasses, looked at me, and asked flatly, "You want to sleep with me?" The charming smirk I'd been practicing froze on my face. Shit, was he always this blunt? And more importantly, this dangerous? Welcome to History Channel. Subscribe to follow all our latest adventures. Story begins. You don't know how? No experience? The clumsy way I touched him made Pitt Horton frown. His half-closed eyes opened just enough to sweep me with a slow, assessing gaze. I stiffened instinctively, like a student caught cheating under a teacher's stare. "From the way you acted earlier," he said, voice flat, "I assumed you had plenty of experience." He propped himself up and pushed me off him with effortless strength. I fell backward, landing in the softness of the mattress. Now he was on top. He shrugged off his suit jacket and reached toward the nightstand. The motion tugged his shirt tight across his waist, revealing clean lines of lean muscle that hugged his frame. Looking down at what he'd taken from the drawer, Pitt let out a sigh, clearly reluctant, and rubbed a thumb over the object in his hand. "Just once," he muttered. "I'm only showing you this once." It was more than I'd imagined. Way more. The whole scene unfolding before me overloaded my senses, and whatever plan I'd initially had vanished. My thoughts scattered like birds, all focused solely on him. I felt something warm trickle from my nose. Confused, I touched it. Blood. My brain, frozen until now, sputtered back to life. One thought looped in my mind. Damn. Was he always this sexy? Being the youngest in the family meant I was spoiled from birth. Endless indulgence shaped my temper and my attitude. With a bit of family money cushioning every fall, I racked up more than my fair share of scandals and trouble. Once I hit college, I pretty much stopped going to class altogether. I used my parents' allowance to hop from country to country like I had no ties, no direction. Then junior year hit. My father learned I might not graduate due to failing grades, and flew halfway across the continent to drag me home, straight from where I'd been partying with lions on a savannah tour. He confiscated my ID, passport, even locked my car in the garage. No more cash, no more getaways. To keep me from acting out again, he made sure I sat through all my retake exams, and the moment I passed, threw me into a project role at our family company. But I wasn't made for structure. I was used to chaos, to indulgence. With no real need to worry about food or rent, I had no motivation to work. I slacked off all day, played games in the office, wandered from floor to floor, or sneaked out to drink with my buddies. It was on one of those sneaky cigarette runs downstairs that I saw Pitt Horton. He was in a fire exit hallway, arguing with another man. Or rather, the man was clinging to him, desperate. "Why are you breaking up with me? Can we not? Please? If there's something wrong, I'll change. Just tell me, I'll fix it. Please, don't leave me. We've already broken up." Pitt's voice was devoid of emotion, drained and tired. "Please stop coming to see me." I'd stood hidden around the corner, listening to every word. Pitt Horton worked in my department, one of the project leads. On the surface, he looked like someone built out of rules, the kind of boy parents brag about, teachers adore, and bosses trust. Shirt always pressed, glasses always in place, manner mild, voice calm. I would never have guessed he liked men. The contrast between that discovery and his buttoned-up exterior, it flipped a switch in me. I was instantly intrigued. At first, I just wanted to mess around. Kill time. Play a little, have some fun, and be done. He was supposed to be just another pretty distraction. I never expected things to spiral like this. Now, I lay against the pillow, watching Pitt Horton lean back slightly above me. He frowned, reached for a tissue, and pressed it against my face. His voice came through the paper, tinged with distaste. Don't bleed on the sheets. The cleaning fee's expensive. When I pulled the tissue away, it was soaked with blood. Nosebleed. I hadn't even noticed. While I was dealing with that, Pitt had finished preparing everything. His breathing was soft and shallow. Water-slicked fingers removed his glasses and set them gently aside. For the first time, I saw his face fully uncovered. The sharp angles of his face were flushed now, his pale skin tinged pink. The usual dark circles under his eyes, signs of sleep deprivation, seemed to glisten with moisture. He straddled my lap, lazily propped on his arms. He looked like he was still in control, but only barely. Like one little push and he'd collapse right into my hands. I swallowed hard. Seeing I hadn't moved, Pitt sighed and reached for my belt himself. But midway through unbuckling he paused. Froze. I knew exactly what he'd seen. I also knew exactly why he was stunned. Smirking, I straightened up, confidence returning. That earlier awkwardness? Embarrassing. I was ready to win back control. But instead of being impressed, Pitt just frowned again. Then he got off the bed. That's enough for today, he said. What? Why? I sat up, disoriented. You're not satisfied? He began pulling his shirt back on. Too big. I have work tomorrow. My back'll hurt. I'll give you the day off. Your father's no fool. If you pull strings like that, he'll figure it out fast. Not just you, I'll be in trouble too. Panic prickled under my skin. I won't go all the way in. I scrambled after him, not even bothering with my clothes. We'll do it your way, okay? Pitt shook his head, already at the door. My voice rose. What about just rubbing against each other? That's harmless, right? Are you kidding me? You come all the way here, tease me, and then what? Leave me like this? Are you playing with me? What the hell do you mean by this? Hey! I slammed a fist against the wall. I'm talking to you. Pitt paused while putting on his shoes and finally looked up. The redness in his face had faded, leaving behind his usual quiet, exhausted detachment. He glanced at the clock on the wall. It's Wednesday, he said, calm as ever. Just 2 more days until the weekend. His gaze met mine through the lenses he'd just put back on. His voice was flat, without edge, but somehow I could feel the weight of disappointment behind it. You seriously can't wait that long? Without waiting for my answer, he picked up his bag, opened the door, and left. One smooth motion. Door open, door closed. And then it was just me, standing there alone and stunned. Did he just reject me? I stared at the door, speechless. Was I just discarded? Too big? Someone actually complained about that? The next morning, Pitt Horton arrived at the office exactly on the He waited for his computer to boot up, used that time to make himself a cup of coffee, grabbed 2 bags of snacks from the break room, and then, clearly dragging his feet, slumped back into his seat with the look of someone being forced to work at gunpoint. A sip of coffee later, Pitt let out a yawn and began his day. Through it all, he didn't look at me once. Not even a glance toward where I stood leaning against the break room doorframe. The fire that had simmered in me since last night reignited, hotter, wilder. He left me alone at the hotel. Now he was pretending I didn't exist? Grinding my teeth, I contemplated dragging him into a meeting room and demanding an explanation. But then I remembered that somewhere in this building, my father might be watching the surveillance footage, tracking my every move. I downed a full iced Americano in one go just to cool my nerves. Across the floor, Pitt's keyboard clacked with mechanical aggression. A few keys, abused from overuse, had gone unresponsive, and he had to press them repeatedly to get them to register. Watching him work so intently reminded me of the day I first approached him. That day, I decided to start with winning his favor, gradually build a connection. I struck up a conversation under the pretense of asking about project progress, then casually shifted from work to hobbies, interests, likes and dislikes. I cast my net wide, angling for anything I could use. But Pitt Horton saw through me immediately. He adjusted his glasses and asked bluntly, "You want to sleep with me?" I froze mid-sentence, caught red-handed. He didn't wait for an answer, he already knew. Turning back to his screen, he said without inflection, "Sorry. I'm not into one-night stands. I don't sleep with people just because we've had a chat. If that's your intention, you should probably give up now." That was when curiosity and competitiveness collided inside me. It wasn't just about interest anymore. It became a challenge. A personal one. I spent 3 whole months working my way in, slowly melting his walls until he finally agreed to date me. And now, after last night's unilateral pause, my teeth itch just thinking about it. I needed to get back at Pitt Horton. I stormed into the break room, chest tight with the need for revenge. Let him enjoy it now. Once I was done playing, I'd dump him so hard he'd feel it in his bones. But just as I stepped inside, Pitt followed behind. We met in the narrow coffee nook, obscured from view by the angle of the wall. His face still held that faint, drowsy weariness, his pupils slow to find mine. The second our eyes met, last night's scene replayed in vivid detail. Should I retaliate now? Tease him until he wanted more, then walk away? While I deliberated, Pitt Horton stepped closer. That familiar scent of his enveloped me first, curling around my senses before his body ever made contact. He reached past me and added ice to his drink. "You uncomfortable?" "What?" It took me a second to catch up to what he meant. He glanced at the doorway, confirmed no one was watching, then let a knuckle graze lightly across my lower abdomen. Here. That odd, electric feeling crawling down my spine. I realized I was being teased. "You wear your thoughts all over your face," Pitt said. "I'd love to do, but not now. The project's entering final phase. The next few days will be busy." He took a sip of coffee, turning slightly away from me. From the side, his figure looked even leaner. The way his belt hugged his waist, it was the kind of body that looked like it could fit in one hand. Delicate, precise, breakable. He didn't notice I was staring. Still speaking, he said, "Everyone's been working hard on this. Let's not do anything that might disrupt progress. Got it?" Maybe it was to soften the blow, maybe it was just him, but he gave me a quick hug. A warm, fleeting touch. I instinctively reached out to return it, but just as my arms lifted, he had already pulled away. The alarm on his watch began to beep. "Meeting time," he said, glancing at the clock. "I'm heading out." And just like that, he vanished through the doorway. It wasn't until he was gone that I realized I hadn't just been teased. I'd been scolded. Who the hell did he think he was? Fuming, I followed after him. I was listed as part of Pitt Horton's project team. But being the boss's son, no one dared assign me anything. They always handled it all themselves and reported back with a neat summary. So when I sat down next to Pitt in the conference room, a few people glanced our way in surprise. But they quickly looked away. We sat in the back. The moment the lights dimmed, Pitt's attention went straight to the whiteboard. He didn't spare me a glance. Being ignored like that pissed me off. So I stretched out my leg and let it brush lightly against his. Nothing. I pushed a little harder. Still no reaction. I frowned, second-guessing myself. Did I get the wrong leg? I looked down to double-check. His pant leg had ridden up slightly above his ankle, thanks to my shoe, to reveal a stretch of pale, slender skin. So white. So smooth. So pretty. No doubt about it. It was definitely Pitt Horton's leg. My throat tightened with the effort of keeping my impulses in check. When I looked up again, Pitt Horton was staring at me. The dim light of the conference room softened his features, casting a sleepy haze over him. His eyes were half-lidded, his chin resting in his palm, and half his body slumped against the table. If this weren't a meeting, I had no doubt he'd already be napping on the desk. He leaned closer and murmured, just loud enough for me to hear. "You like it?" A subtle, teasing warmth spread over my skin. I glanced down. He was copying me, brushing his leg lightly against mine. The gesture was awkward, unpracticed, yet somehow incredibly provocative. "If you really like it," he breathed, voice dropping. His lips, soft and tinted with the faintest blush, inched toward mine. As the space between us shrank, so did the distance between our breaths. I could feel the heat of his exhale flutter against my ear as his mouth parted, voice whispering directly into me. "Next time, you can use them." My heartbeat kicked into overdrive. Heat rose steadily up the side of my face. By the time I'd come back to my senses, Pitt had already turned away, calmly watching the whiteboard as if nothing had happened. I, on the other hand, was left in total chaos, still reeling from those stolen seconds. When the meeting ended, Pitt left with the rest of the team, returned to his desk, and chugged half an iced Americano like he'd never said a word to me. Once again left in the cold, I stomped upstairs, pissed. I flopped into the office chair, then migrated to the bed in the private restroom. Lay there for a while. Then moved to the sofa. Then ended up lying on the thick rug. The office had everything, and yet I couldn't get comfortable anywhere. So I pulled up the security camera feed and found the angle that covered Pitt Horton's desk. There he was, broad shoulders, slim waist, legs elegantly crossed. His long fingers played absently with a steel pen, twirling it around his palm with ease. I stared for a beat, then called my assistant in. "I'm done with this office." There were 2 empty rooms on the 15th floor, right? My assistant thought for a moment. "Yes, but they're small. No private restrooms. Glass walls." "That's fine." I smiled. I like glass walls. Since relocating downstairs, my favorite activity became spying on Pitt Horton through the blinds and pretending to make coffee so I could loiter near his desk. He didn't seem bothered. In fact, he occasionally bossed me around. "Can you make a copy of this?" I crossed my arms. Why should I? I'd never done chores in my life. Not even my parents dared give me orders. Pitt glanced at me, then stood and picked up the document himself. "Hey, where are you going?" "To make a copy." I scowled. I didn't say I wouldn't do it. Snatching the file from his hands, I asked, "How many copies?" He sat back down, nudged his glasses up. 2. "Got it." I turned to leave. Behind me, Pitt and a few coworkers gawked like they'd just seen a unicorn. A minute later, they tucked their heads back down like nothing had happened. Returning with the documents, I hesitated beside Pitt's desk. "How does the copier work?" He froze mid-keystroke, then slowly exhaled. "I'll show you," he said. "But just this once." After completing his task, I lingered around his workspace again, aimless. It was like being in a video game. He was the NPC, and every time I got close, he handed me a side quest. "Can you send this upstairs?" "No. The boss is in today. If he sees you running documents, he'll think you're finally taking your job seriously." Pitt paused. "If you don't want to, forget it." I thought it over. He had a point. "Fine, I'll go." I delivered the files, then swore I wouldn't wander near him again, tired of being used like an errand boy. But 30 minutes later, I was drifting toward the door again. And of course, another assignment awaited. "Could you make me a cup of coffee?" Pitt asked. His voice was low, words slow and soft, like he was coaxing me. I was too caught up in that tone to reply. He misread my silence and got up himself. I didn't say I wouldn't go. I shoved him right back into his seat. He looked at me and then smiled. "Thanks." He brushed his forehead lightly against my arm and whispered, "Baby." I froze. My ears burned. After 2 days of watching him like a hawk, it was finally Friday night. After work, I dragged Pitt Horton straight to the hotel. This time, I was more than ready. I'd combined all the techniques I'd studied online with the ones Pitt had taught me personally. And it worked. His breathing grew ragged, his face flushed, and occasional gasps spilled from his lips. Once the prep was done, Pitt finally got a break. He tilted his head, body limp as if all his strength had drained away, sinking into the mattress. Even his voice was softer than usual. "You did good." That unexpected praise went straight to my head. My hands, midway through tearing open the wrapper, trembled. Wait! Right at the critical moment, Pitt stopped me again. My temper flared. But before I could explode, Pitt reached up and took off his glasses. His always calm eyes were now tinted with a rare urgency. He wrapped a lazy arm around my neck, drawing me closer. Come here. Maybe I was still too inexperienced. I misjudged the pressure, more than once, and each time I pushed too hard, Pitt flinched, gasping in pain. After a few tries, he couldn't take it anymore. He wedged a hand between us, palm pressing against my chest. His fingers tightened around me, eyes glistening faintly, his voice barely audible. Gentler. I'm already tired today. Ah. He didn't get an answer right away. I was frozen, brain blank, everything from earlier wiped clean. My throat bobbed. When I finally managed to speak, it was hoarse and raspy. I'll be gentle. But Pitt didn't loosen his grip. He just kept watching me, trying to gauge whether I really meant it. I lowered my head, gently pried his hand free, and brought it to my lips. His palm was slightly damp, still holding traces of his scent. Quietly I whispered, "It's dirty. Let me clean it for you." And before I could finish the sentence, I kissed him. When I finally eased up, Pitt looked genuinely satisfied. He let out a soft, languid moan and murmured praise between breaths. So good. I stared at his face, eyes fixed, refusing to miss even the slightest expression. The dazed look in his eyes, the faint crease between his brows, the trembling lips. All of it. All those subtle shifts in his usually cold expression were because of me. The rush of it all made my movements rougher. I pinned his wrists above his head, kissed him deeper, harder. When it was finally over, I lay beside him, still not entirely satisfied. Wanna go again? Pitt was already dead tired, caught somewhere between sleep and consciousness. My question snapped him fully awake. He blinked, alarmed. It's too late. Just once more. No. He looked up at me, still draped over him like a rock, and his brows furrowed deeper and deeper. After a long pause, he gave in. I want something sweet. Go to the store downstairs and get me a juice. When you come back, we can continue. I'll order delivery. He shook his head. I want the one you buy yourself. I shot up, pulling on my clothes. Wait here. I ran out fast. But by the time I opened the door and stepped back in, the bed was empty. Only a single note sat on the pillow. Get some rest. Seriously? After being left at the hotel again, I sulked at home for 2 full days. Finally, Monday came. Pitt had barely finished clocking in when I called him into my office. Before I could say a word, he beat me to it. Perfect timing. I needed to speak with you. He dropped a stack of documents onto my desk. I don't understand how something this simple could have so many errors. The pages were riddled with red ink, notes, corrections, question marks. Truthfully, I never did any real work around here. No one dared ask me to. But occasionally, when my dad made surprise inspections, I'd whip something up to look busy. This particular file? It was a half-assed attempt I slapped together to placate him. The formatting was reversed, the sentences jumbled, and in a moment of boredom, I'd even thrown in some emoji. I don't care whose son you are. If you've chosen to do something, take it seriously. Pitt's tone turned stern. This isn't just about you. This file affects everyone on the project. I sat there, stunned, while he lectured me. As he turned to leave, I snapped out of it. Wait, I didn't call you here for that. He stopped. That night. Felt great. That's not what I meant. When this project wraps, we can do it more often. I'm really looking forward to your performance. His voice was casual, dismissive even. But those words left me completely speechless. You did so well that night, he added. I'm sure you'll excel in other areas too. Of course. He gave a satisfied nod and walked out. I was left alone in the office, just me and the very obvious tent in my pants, still reeling from that damn smirk on his face. After quickly fixing the issues in the documents, I took over part of Pitt Horton's workload. He didn't object, just gave me a few reminders about the parts that were easy to mess up before turning back to his screen. With fewer tasks, he finally relaxed a little. Gone were the days where he was too swamped to eat, buried in project files. And once the project wrapped, he fully let go. Even the dark circles under his eyes faded. His thin face, under my persistent feeding, rounded out just enough to soften his sharp angles. One morning, I saw him stroll across the office holding his usual cup of coffee. His entire posture screamed, semi-retired, so lazy and content it made me want to throw something at him. He noticed me watching through the glass wall of my office. With a casual turn of his head, he puckered his lips and blew me a kiss. My body jolted. By the time I could react, he'd already looked away, offering me nothing but the back of his neatly combed head. I rubbed my temples, frustrated. With the last project concluded, most of the department had eased into a slower pace. But even then, Pitt still refused to go out with me on weeknights. His excuse was airtight. I couldn't even argue. I'm pushing 30. I can't keep up with some fresh-out-of-college kid like you. I glared at his back like a radar lock-on system, tracking his every step across the office. Wherever he went, my gaze followed. But after nearly a month of this, something felt off. Wait a second, wasn't I the one who said I'd just play with him for a bit and then dump him to get revenge? When did I become the clingy one, wagging my tail like a puppy? To get my head straight, I skipped work the next day and went drinking with a few old friends. Well, look who finally shows up. Been working hard, huh? Haven't heard from you in ages. So, how's it going with that office cutie? Bagged him yet? I'd mentioned Pitt Horton to them a few times before. Ever since he caught my interest, I couldn't stop bringing him up. I smirked, slouching back against the sofa. Going great. You think there's anyone I can't handle? They laughed and clinked bottles with me. So, when are you planning to end it? The question didn't sit right with me. Still, I forced a casual tone. I'm not done playing. Just don't screw around too long. One of them nudged me with an elbow. It's been, 6 months now? I waved a hand dismissively. Relax. Not gonna happen. We drank and joked until late afternoon, and I barely made it back to the office before the end of the day. Buzzed from the alcohol, my steps were unsteady, my head foggy. As soon as I sat down, I immediately started looking around for Pitt Horton. Not at his desk. I hauled myself up and checked the break room. Empty. Restroom? No sign. I paced around his workspace, even checked under the desk and peeked in the trash can like a madman. Still no Pitt. My buzz vanished instantly. Where is he? I turned to the employee seated next to Pitt's desk, voice sharp. Where's Pitt Horton? Where the hell had my boyfriend gone? I found him in the fire escape stairwell. The door was half open. Inside, I could hear voices. You're lying, aren't you? Are you really with that guy now? Why, Pitt? We were doing fine before, weren't we? Please, Pitt Horton, give me one more chance. Just one more. The voice was desperate raw. I could hear the man's quick breaths, almost pleading. The scene overlapped with a memory, and then I recognized the voice. Pitt's ex-boyfriend. Tell me what you want, I'll give you anything. Say something. I clenched my jaw so hard I could feel my teeth grinding. I'd only been gone half a day, and someone was already trying to break into my home base? I adjusted my angle and focused on Pitt, who stood quietly by the wall. The stairwell lighting was dim, and I couldn't clearly see his expression. My anger faded just enough to let anxiety creep in. Would Pitt give in? Would he go back to him? Was I just his rebound? Some casual distraction to kill time between lovers? My chest tightened, blood boiling. Just then, Pitt Horton finally spoke. That's enough, Charles Glynn. We're over. Let it go. His voice was cold, final. That sentence shattered something in Charles. He snapped forward, hand reaching out toward Pitt in a rush of panic. No. Come with me. We'll go somewhere private. Just talk, okay? The moment he reached for Pitt, I kicked the door wide open and stepped in between them. The hand meant for Pitt landed firmly on my arm. Charles blinked, startled by the muscle beneath his palm. Move, he snapped, shaking off my arm and reaching again. I blocked him. He reached once more. I blocked once more. I stood like a wall between Pitt and his past, refusing to budge. I'm Pitt Horton's boyfriend, I said, looking Charles straight in the eye. If you don't leave right now, I'll call security. Charles Glynn didn't even glance at me. His voice was sharp, directed at the person behind me. Pitt Horton, you think he's some decent guy? He's a flirt. Who knows how many people he's fooled around with abroad. You really think he cares about you? Bullshit, I growled, jaw tight, the veins at my temple pulsing. What kind of crap are you spouting? What does any of that have to do with you? Pitt's voice cut clean through mine. Charles Glynn, he said, tone crisp, cold. Whatever you think about him or me, it has nothing to do with you anymore. Security eventually dragged Charles away, still kicking and screaming. Pitt looked fine, unbothered, as if none of that had rattled him in the slightest. But I, on the other hand, was a complete mess. He was just talking nonsense, I blurted. I really just went abroad to have fun. I never fooled around or anything. My dad had people chasing me across continents. Half the time I barely had 2 days in one place before I had to run again. I didn't have time to hook up with anyone. Pitt nodded casually, not looking particularly concerned either way. That reaction, too calm, too indifferent, made me even more unsettled. I turned away, not wanting to look at that face any longer. But after a while of sulking, I gave in and turned back. How many have you dated? How long were you and that guy together? Not many, Pitt said, tilting his head thoughtfully. Charles? 6 months, maybe. My fists clenched on instinct. Why did you break up? Pitt finally looked at me, intrigued by the odd edge in my tone. Because, he said slowly, watching my face, he was clingy. After learning that Pitt had dumped his ex for being too clingy, I stopped lingering around him all the time and poured most of my energy into work. My dad noticed and got so emotional he nearly cried. He handed me a fat bonus and even gave the green light for a vacation abroad. I ignored both and stayed at my desk, still grinding. Pitt caught on quickly and seemed amused by my sudden shift in behavior. With me pulling more weight, his workload eased. He even had the time and energy to start teasing me again. In a meeting one afternoon, I was up front at the whiteboard giving a presentation. Pitt, sitting in the back, stared straight at me. Our eyes locked. Slowly, he reached up and took off his glasses. My brain short-circuited, dragged helplessly back to the nights we'd spent together. I choked mid-sentence and immediately turned my back. That's all for today, let's take a break. The employees gathered their folders and slipped out in 2s and 3s, leaving the conference room empty and dim. Only Pitt and I remained. Footsteps approached, each one closer than the last. His voice came from behind me. Everyone's gone. I turned, and found myself cornered, pressed between Pitt and the wall. He looked up at me. With the difference in height, our noses nearly brushed. Kiss me. The second he said it, I obeyed, crashing our lips together. When we pulled apart, both of us were breathless. Pitt leaned into me, fixing the shirt I'd just rumpled. You've been kind of cold lately, he murmured. Getting bored? He turned his head, eyes lazily half-lidded, like a fox pretending to be tame. It's because, I fumbled for words. You said you don't like clingy people. Pitt chuckled. Broke up with Li Yen because he was possessive, he said. He wanted me to quit my job and stay home. When I refused, he tried to lock me in. And anyway, his fingers brushed under my chin, tilting my head up. Even if I don't like clingy people, depends on the person. After Pitt left, I stood in the conference room like I was being punished. Took me a while to drag myself back to my desk. Files were stacked high, tasks piling up. But no matter which document I looked at, all I saw was Pitt's face. Eventually, I gave in, slammed a hand over my face, and groaned. Shit. This man's gotta be a succubus. Bonus chapter, a year later. After a year of dating Pitt Horton, sugar sweet, too good to be true, I met up with a few old friends for drinks. We went through the usual small talk, then someone asked about my love life. So, what's going on with you lately? Anyone new got your heart racing? I casually mentioned that I was still seeing Pitt. Their eyes nearly popped out of their heads. Wait, still? Didn't you say it was just for fun? You're seriously still with him? You caught feelings? Man, you've been playing this game way too long. When are you ending it? You guys don't get it. I toyed with the matching charm on my phone. A little couple's keychain. Mind your business. The time just hasn't come yet. 20 years later, a beach resort somewhere. Some things never changed. Every morning, Pitt Horton still had to have his coffee first. He lay stretched out on a lounge chair, ocean breeze in his hair, flipping through the latest novel he'd picked up. Even now, with silver streaking through his temples, he still radiated that subtle, effortless magnetism that made it hard for anyone to look away. I stood in the distance, just watching, soaking in the sight. Then my phone buzzed. Messages from the group chat popped up. Seriously? You're vacationing with him again? Weren't you just playing around? You're almost 50, when are you gonna be done playing? Wake up, Thomas Warner. You're not thinking straight. My good mood soured instantly. I scowled and started typing. What do you mean playing? Isn't this exactly what playing around looks like? Bro, it's not you playing. He's the one playing you. You guys know nothing. God, getting old's turned you all into nags. That's it, don't bother me anymore. I slammed the phone shut and turned it off with a grin. Then I strolled up to Pitt Horton, whistling as I went. Babe, I brought snacks.
Thanks for stopping by. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos.